The one business thing real quick, talked about the membership dinner, the details. The only details is we have a place for it now. It's going to be at the Oakhurst Community Center. I think it's near the firehouse. So we have a place. Vinny's taking care of the catering. He's got a catering contact. So, I mean, everything's set for it. We just need you to come and sign up for it. So, you know, that's the only detail is we finally got a place. Again, excuse me, we don't know yet. We don't know the cost. It's going to be very, very reasonable, right, Vinny?
It's going to be like $20 or less
per person, and that's just fully inclusive. So, okay. As Vinny said, Jeff Anderson, part of the leadership team. If you came and you looked on the website and you were expecting to see the lead pastor, Pastor Anthony, I think they already said that he's in Spain on a missions trip along with his wife and along with Andrew, who's also on our leadership team. So if you're expecting to see this really good-looking, fun Italian guy up here preaching that you normally see, I'm not him. So, okay. What does Starbucks sell?
Coffee.
You sure?
Fun.
Well, okay, we got enough answers. Really, yes, they do sell coffee, and probably pretty expensive coffee, right? I mean, we pay a lot for it, especially some of the, I'm amazed when I am behind somebody. I normally just drink black coffee or just with cream, and people are getting these $5 and $6 and $7 drinks. Starbucks, if you look at their website, if you look at some of the organization about, you know, their things for being employed there, they say they're trying to create community. They're trying to change the world. In fact, by their diversity practices and everything else, you really have to look at their website. It's pretty amazing. And they really want to change the world by connecting, getting people connected. They want to be the third place in your life. You've got your work, you've got your home. Your home should be first. I was going to put work first. That's really, you know, stop the sermon. Home first. Yeah, home first, then your work. And the third place in your life isn't anywhere else. It's Starbucks. Because Starbucks is where you think about when you want to connect with people. They want to create community because they understand people love to be connected, need to be connected. Facebook right now, I think they have 1.5 billion users. So there's probably people, I don't know, we could probably raise hands. It'd be interesting to see who has the most Facebook friends. But you probably, if you're a big user, you probably have more Facebook friends than you even really know. You probably have some people there that you have no idea who they are. I know that's true on LinkedIn, which is another business thing. I had people contacting me saying they want to be linked in with me in business. I have no idea who they are, but I said, okay, that's fine. Same thing with Facebook. God's creation, I think Pastor Anthony talked about this. One of his designs from the very beginning, we see this repetitive thing when God created the heavens and the earth. It's good. He created the animals. It's good. He created this. He created the heavens and the earth. Everything was good. The only time we hear him saying it's not good is when he creates man. And he said it's not good. It's not good that he's alone, so he creates woman. So really, we're designed for community. We're designed for connection. So it's really interesting that we're talking about this membership thing before we get right into the heart of this. Is part of our three values are invest, invite, and innovate. One of the three values, besides our mission, which is to follow Jesus and fulfill the Great Commission. And I really think this parable that we're going to talk about has to do with invitation. And it's really, really interesting that it just hones in and just fits in with what we're talking about with this membership. So, anyway, what we're going to be talking about is the parable of the Great Banquet. It's in Luke 14. We're going to look at it in just a second. But let me just give you the very, very quick background. Quick background is that Jesus, and it says in Luke 14, and this is 1 through 6, and I'm not going to read it, but you can go back and read it on your own. Jesus is invited to the home of a prominent Pharisee, okay? So he's going to a Pharisee. But this isn't a really fun dinner party. This is, the Pharisees were at that point, knew all the miracles Jesus had done. He's traveling, they hear about him, they know of his fame. They go, we don't know who this guy is, right? He hasn't been he hasn't been taught in our schools. We don't know who he is. He's up in Galilee. So now he's in Jerusalem. And this is really what I would call a hostile dinner party. They're coming to trip him up, and they did this many times. Tried to trip him up and tried to get him to say something and get him to, they wanted to find out who he was. So they were watching him carefully. And this is one of those times where he healed somebody again on the Sabbath, which was a no-no for them. And he heals another person, then he asks them this. And so then, basically this is the setting. So he's with a large group of people, because I don't know how big this is, but let's just imagine, You know, it's not 5 or 10 people, it's 20, 30, 40 people in this house. Then we get to John, then we get to where Jesus starts talking to them about this parable. So he's not talking, sometimes we see he's teaching the disciples, and it's a very, very intimate setting, and he's teaching them about who he is. Remember, he's in front of sort of a hostile audience. So if we can put up Luke 14, 7 through 11. Good, okay. When he noticed how the guests, this is Jesus speaking, and he's at this dinner. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. So first of all, it's brilliant that Jesus is just taking the situation and he's observing that people are taking places of honor. He's just taking the situation. He said, let me teach you something about this. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So, here we have the situation. He's observing this. This is just like America. People really haven't changed that much, have we? You know, if we really think about it, it's the me first. It's the people wanting to say, I'm going to be closest to the guest. I'm going to sit right next to the prominent Pharisee because I'm the next most important person. And the whole principle here is pretty simple. Jesus said this when we hear it all the time in church. Put others before ourselves. Guess down your place. Put yourself in a position to be honored, not humiliated. It's always better to go up to the front of the class than be said, you know what, you're not important enough. You go, somebody more important than you has come. You know, there's something about our just human nature that just craves to be, we want to feel important, right? We want to feel like really validated. If we did a video, if we did after the service, if we took a 5-minute video of everybody in this room, and we said, hey, just tell us about your greatest success over this last year. And then we played it back to the whole group. We sat through it. I mean, how long did that take? We would probably all be impressed. There's probably pretty cool things that happened in each of your life over the last year. And we'd say, wow, that's pretty cool, and we'd be impressed. But if we did the opposite, if we got you in front of a video and said, hey, tell us about your greatest struggle or your greatest failure. Tell us about that, you know, in this last year. You know what would happen? We'd have connectivity. We'd have vulnerability. We'd probably be tears because we'd probably be, oh, I had no idea you were going through that. We'd be ministering to each other. And so it's one of those things where it's amazing that when we put ourselves on a high pedestal and put ourselves first, we're really not in a position to minister. And Jesus knew that, and he was the ultimate example. I just think about this last week. We had community group testimonies, and we're just talking about how we came to Christ. And it was just really moving to hear everybody's story. But see, nobody was in there saying, hey, I'm great, and look at how successful I am here. It's not about that. The connecting heart, really, and really, let me go back to what this really says. When we look at this, the subtitle I would put over this is really a connecting heart. You're connecting heart because you have a heart that's got a humble attitude, and you're connecting with other people because you can't connect people. I didn't want to go to politics, but somebody that's really, you know, if somebody's really, really full of themselves, and I'll just let you fill in the blanks, I won't talk about politics. Are you attracted to them? Are you drawn to them? It's all about them. So we have Philippians 2. Worship really gives us perspective, right? We had this great worship this morning. It gives us perspective on who we are. And when we have a humble view of ourselves, we're able to serve others. There's a book written by a Wharton professor called his name is Adam Grant. It's called Give and Take. It was just in 2014. I read some business books. I've not read this one. What's funny, just think about this for a second. Not a Christian, not written from a Christian perspective. But this man has now basically, the advertisement for this book is we have a revolutionary new approach to success, as if there weren't enough business books already. And you know what it is? Givers and people that help other people end up being more successful than takers. Wow, what a brilliant, Einstein moment for them. But really, that's taken straight from the Word of God, right? It's amazing that, and that happens too. I will tell you an experience I had when I was 13 or 14. I don't know, it was around that age, and there was something about me that I felt like I repelled people. I mean, does that sound, that sounds funny, but I would start talking to people and they'd be like, and then they'd go away. And I had some friends, but I wanted to be more popular. And I was a Christian at the time, but I just was trying to figure this out. Somebody, one of my mentors in life, gave me this book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Again, not a Christian book, but it's written back in the 30s, and you know who Dale Carnegie is. What's funny about this book is it's pretty simple too. It basically says, if you want to have friends, if you want to influence people, don't talk about yourself. Talk about them. Listen to them, ask them questions, get engaged in their life, and you'll find out that you make friends all the time. It was really funny. But that's part of the principle here in terms of a connecting heart. So then, again, so think about this setting. Jesus is telling this story to these people, and he's basically slapping them down, right? I mean, they're trying to find a place of importance. They're trying to question the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and say, hey, we're smarter than you. And he just turns it right around on him. The next two verses I want to read, Luke 12 through 14. So there's really this parable of the great banquet. You have this setting, you have this one short story about prominent people, and the next is 12 through 14. Did we have that? Then Jesus said to his host, so again, he's coming back at the Pharisee. When you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and you will be repaid. Now let me have a little thought here. This does not mean that you're not supposed to have. You take the Bible and understand it in context. It does not mean you're not supposed to invite your family and friends for dinner. What it means is don't only do that. It's a continuing phrase in Greek. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So this is what I would call, if you have another subtitle, you have a connecting heart, and that goes to your attitude. That starts with you, and that starts with a realization of who you are and your place in Christ. The next thing is you really got to take some action with that. So I'd call this a connecting action. And this is a hard thing. This is really easy to talk about, but this is really hard to do. Invite others who have nothing to give back to you. Of course, we should still nurture the relationships with our friends and family, but we're to extend ourselves to those who have nothing to offer us. Now, I think actually this church is pretty good with that. I think that we have a heart. There's a lot of emphasis on grace. I think that we really have a heart for people who are struggling, and we're going out, and it doesn't matter how much money you make or how much, you don't have anything. Just come to Jesus. But we have to continue on that. This takes a continual effort. Tim Keller, who's a very, very prominent, some of you may know him in Redeemer Church in New York, probably one of my favorite pastors to listen to. And then, in talking about this passage, offered his definition of Christian hospitality, and it's this. Christian hospitality is welcoming people into your lives and refreshing them with the resources you ordinarily refresh yourselves. In other words, and I think Pastor Anthony referred to this, sometime in the last 2 months. I remember him talking about this. In other words, you don't have to wait till your house is perfect. The biggest hindrance to entertaining is really pride, right? We have to, and we're sometimes guilty of that because we just say, oh, you know what, it's messy, or the kids growing. People would rather have a store-bought pizza with you often and have fellowship with you than have a great feast infrequently. So, whatever you normally do to refresh yourself, because we all need refreshment, right? Just extend that out and include other people in it. And I think that's a pretty simple thing. We try to do that in our community groups, but I'm saying this, I think it's more of an action. We need to look next door to our neighbors and look around us and open our eyes and see where the need is. So that's really a connecting action. So Jesus is saying, don't just invite your friends and family, extend your worldview, open your eyes to greater needs. Then we come to the main event, which is the parable of the great banquet. And that's verses 15 through 24. If you could put that up there, Justin. Doing a great job today, buddy. Cool. Okay. So he tells these two stories in a setup. Then somebody from the crowd here that Jesus is sitting at this table, when one of those at the table heard him say this, he said to Jesus, "Blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God." And what he's referring to is really that messianic kingdom, that idea of being with God forever. So this is, Whether he was saying that sarcastically or not, we don't know. Maybe he really thought Jesus who he said he was. It doesn't matter. Then Jesus goes on and tells this story. Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, 'I've just bought a field. I must go and see it. Please excuse me.' Another said, 'I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me.' Still another said, 'I just got married, so I can't come.' He was the rudest of them. At least the other guy says, 'Please excuse me.' This third guy, 'I can't come.' The servant came back and reported this to the master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered the servant, 'Go out quickly into the streets.'" I mean, there's an urgency to this, and just understand the anger of the host. "Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." "Sir," the servant said, "what you ordered has already been done, but there's still room." Then the master told the servant, "Go out to the roads and country lanes and compel them to come in. Compel them, just urge them, so that my house will be full." And then at this point, just to understand the context as a storyteller, then Jesus probably turns, and he's not telling the parable anymore. He turns to his Pharisee host and the rest of the people there. He says, "I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get a taste of my banquet." So this is really the compelling vision. This is the vision, or the connecting vision. So we have the connecting heart, we have connecting actions, which is going out, and this is the connecting vision. This is the vision of this feast. Master said to the servant, okay. Understand this was a big affair. Everyone in the community would know about it. This isn't, sometimes we look at this and if we don't have context of the first century or something, we'll look at this and say, well, you know, people have excuses. Of course, they could buy a house, they could buy some oxen, you know, whatever, and people get married. So maybe they had a good reason not to come, you know, right? We're sort of, we sometimes give grace when it shouldn't be given. I have a story that really just about just an experience that I had when I was young. It involves a little town called Savonburg, Kansas. Anybody listening to this tape is from this. Nobody, you've never heard of has anybody ever heard of Savonburg, Kansas, other than my wife? Anybody? No. Town of 100, has 109 people in it. I grew up in Kansas City most of my childhood, and it's about 2 miles way out in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. A little town of 109 people. It has a covenant church. My grandfather was actually a pastor of that church at one point in the 50s and 60s when he was in his, it may have been the 40s even, when he was in his ministry. They had this big celebration, the 75th anniversary of the church. Understand, there's 109 people in the town. There's 200 people in the church. I don't know how they do that. I mean, it's like everybody in the town goes, and everybody from every other surrounding little farm town goes. But the point was this. Everybody in town knew about this. There was no other conflict. This was a big deal for the town. Actually, my grandfather preached. I think he was in his 70s. I sang before him. It was really a great honor. I mean, he's a really neat man of God, and it was a cool experience. But the point there was somebody in Savonburg, and I'm going to compare this to this great banquet. Somebody in Savonburg wouldn't say, "Oh, you know what, I had some other plans, or I had another thing to do." You know, they would know about it. It would be a big event. The community calendar would be clear. So here in this, you have to understand, people had already accepted the invitation. They had already said yes. It was a great honor to attend. It was super important. So here are these 3 excuses. The first was the real estate excuse. So real quickly, land is pretty precious in the Middle East, right? We have to understand all the fights about land and everything in the Middle East. Just like it, but things aren't much different today. Would you buy a house without looking at it? It's absurd, right? This is a lie. This isn't an excuse. This is an out-and-out lie that this person gave to not attend the banquet. Somebody had already agreed to come as saying no at the last moment. It's a shocking insult to the host. This isn't just like a little white lie. This is a shocking insult. You wouldn't buy a piece of real estate. I mean, somebody may be buying a real estate trust or something complicated, but for your own personal home, can you imagine saying, I've just bought some land or a home, and now I've got to go look at it? It's not a real excuse. The second excuse is the piling excuse. Same thing. No one would ever, work animals are probably, you know, it's an agrarian society. Nobody would ever buy a work animal without looking at it and trying it out. It's sort of like Some of you may know, I run a car dealership. So some of you may know that. Now you know if you didn't know that. I'm like the token tax collector on the elder team, on the leadership team, because I run a car dealership. It's an honest one, it's a good one, but I'm still a car dealer. You wouldn't buy a used car without testing it out, would you? You wouldn't buy a new car even, but you'd at least be assured that the new car didn't have any problems. But the best comparison here is I just bought a used car, and now I just bought it, now I've got to go test drive and make sure it's okay. Again, this excuse is it's a shocking insult. It's somebody that had already agreed to come, and now was saying no at the last moment. So, and it's a lie. And the second one, but again, the first two people, as I pointed out when we were reading the scripture, they at least said, please excuse me. It wasn't worth much. This third person say, hey, I just got married and I can't come. Well, what I said before about the social calendar is really true here. They didn't just get married. It's not like they're on their honeymoon. They didn't get married that day in a small agrarian village. We're talking about a great banquet, a host with a lot of resources. They didn't just get married. So basically, they made an excuse, or it wasn't convenient for them, or they just didn't feel like going. But they had already agreed to say. So once again, it's a shocking insult to the host. Gary Burrs, who was a professor at Wheaton, wrote this in a book called Jesus, the Middle Eastern Storyteller, just to give you some perspective. In Jesus' story, a crisis had been built. An honorable member of the community, the village, had done everything right. He has prepared a feast. He's chosen the day. We have evidence to think he has done everything the village expects. The village knows the day of the banquet, and the guests have given their RSVP to the servants. They plan to come. Yet at this turning point in the story, the focus falls on three people who give illegitimate excuses for their absence. The excuses are not merely white lies that may be overlooked. They are insulting within the context of Jesus' world. I'll bring it down in terms of sometimes, again, we've got to make the Bible simple, right? It's meant for us to be simple. We had dinner with Bob and Lorraine on Friday. We made plans on Monday. Now, we could have had, this is just a very micro thing. This is not a big host and a big dinner. If I'd broken my leg on Friday morning and called them, that would probably be a legitimate excuse to say we can't go out to dinner with them. That wouldn't be legitimate? You are tough. Lisa, you're tough. Or, if you came sick or there was some emergency. But barring any of that, if we just called them, and we're friends and we've known each other for a long time, we've just been trying to get together for dinner. We planned it for a week. If we somehow at 5 o'clock just called them and said, hey, Bob, we're sorry, we just can't make it. Well, why? I just can't make it. It would be an insulting thing to our friendship. I mean, you have to put it in that mindset. I've even taken it to a higher level. Imagine somebody with great resources, whether or not you like Chris Christie, just imagine the governor, you're invited to a banquet. It's a New Jersey celebration of something, I don't know, and Christie's hosting it. And you're invited, and you come, and you're gonna say, hey, Chris, I just tell the staff or email them and say, hey, listen, I just bought a house, I can't come. It probably wouldn't really matter much, but you know what I'm saying? And I'm just assuming again that you're somebody that's really important, that's really an important part of this dinner. You should be there. There's a reason you should be there. That's really the missing part there. So in this story, the great solution is really interesting. Jesus said, first invite those in the streets and the lame of the city, the poor and the handicapped. He starts with their own village. These people are probably super surprised. They don't have any rights. They're being invited to this feast. They're being invited to this banquet. Wow, this is impressive. Even that effort doesn't fill the banquet. Then the host makes a remarkable decision. He says, go outside the village, go out in the streets, go out everywhere. I want my banquet full. So he does that. And as I said before in verse 24, Jesus breaks from that storyteller's role and talks directly to the Pharisees and the other guests at the dinner. He says, I tell you, not one of those who were invited and didn't come will get a taste of my banquet. So what are a couple things we can say about this in terms of application about the feast and the connecting vision? The first thing is the wedding feast of the King. This is vision of eternity. And really when we celebrate communion, which we celebrated last week, it would have been good to celebrate that this week because that's just a small taste of the Feast of the Lamb of God that we're going to have in eternity. The thing about this invitation that really is pretty cool, it is an invitation to all people. This is not an exclusive club. This is not a limited club. This is the gospel. It goes to everybody. It's just for all people. It's radically inclusive, and I think, and everybody's invited. And I think sometimes we maybe lose sight of that a little bit. Again, this church is pretty good with it, but I think our hearts have to be stirred and say, we need to go out. The church is really the way God works in this world to invite people to the feast. It's really a picture of the kingdom of God. I think one thing to think about, this is not just for people to make sure they're saved and make sure they're going to be a part of the banquet. Think about Thanksgiving. I think that's a pretty good thing. Think about Thanksgiving. I'm already hungry. I just ate the dinner. Think Thanksgiving or Christmas. You have this feast. You have your friends. Most of you have a lot of family. Sometimes you have friends, but you have the people closest to you involved, and you're feasting, and you're laughing, and you're enjoying it. You can be engaged in that, or you can. I think about when I was a little kid, and anybody else can relate. Just raise your hand. When I was 8, 9, I remember growing up and the aunts and uncles are all talking, and it's so boring. And I'm crawling underneath the table with my cousins, and I'm having fun on my own. But I wasn't engaged really with the main dinner. We were still, it was okay because that's what was age, relevant for us. But, so I think it's possible, this parable isn't just about being saved and being present. I think it's being fully engaged at the dinner and pursuing God with passion. I had a friend that I thought was really, really cool in high school. And because when I went over to his house, my family always we had dinner together all the time, right? We had to have dinner together. We followed the same model, and June's parents followed that same model, so we've done it with our kids. Family dinner, and everybody talks, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good, but it should be, but you know what I'm saying, it's just this family. My friend, I never saw anything like it when I was in high school. I'd go over to his house. They didn't talk to each other. They just had the TV on. They just had the TV right at the end of the kitchen table, and I thought that was so cool. And then I thought, later on, I go, no, wait a second, they're missing out. I mean, all they're doing is just focusing on whatever TV show or sports, whatever. His father was a coach. And I thought that was cool, but I think there was something that was missing. I think we have to get into this mindset of what kind of thing we're talking about this banquet. I will say, in general, the best day of my life, we should always say that is when became a Christian, and I became a Christian when I was 9 years old in the Billy Graham Crusade, because that's the start of our Christian life. But I mean, that's true. So I'll say the second best day of my life was my wedding day. We had a great time. We got married, right? I mean, it was I mean, what, you still think it was a good time? Yeah, thanks. Sometimes she wonders. But we had a great time at our wedding, and it was really funny. Then I'm thinking we have to think about the analogies. Her parents were the host. They threw us it was in North Jersey, threw us a wonderful wedding, and all the friends and family. But it was a wonderful celebration. I think, that's what we have to focus on. This is what we're talking about. Sometimes I think we miss the celebration aspect. Our daughter, now Kristen, is engaged to a really wonderful young man, and we're planning a wedding now in Kansas City in April. Planning for that is fun, the anticipation's great, but nothing's going to be as good as the actual banquet, right? Nothing's going to be as good as that wedding day on April 16th in Kansas City when I see my daughter get married. I'm going to lose it, I know, but it's cool. But that's what we're talking about here. Something so celebratory that it should really our expectation should really be for the great banquet. It should rule our thoughts and our motivations. So let's wrap this up. The early church, they changed the world, right? We read the book of Acts, just awesome. It was incredible. Well, you have to really understand, that wasn't just because of the apostles. The apostles, I'm sure, it was great to have eyewitnesses of Jesus' life and the apostles, but I think it was normal people, a lot of normal people just like you and me, who were following the apostles' teaching, were following Jesus, and they all made a decision just like we can make a decision. They said, you know what? I think I'm going to have a connecting heart. I'm going to value other people as more important to me. I'm going to guest down my place. I'm going to honor other people before me, because I think they did that. I think that in that community, they really did that. I think those people, those Christians then, and just like we can, say, I'm going to take a connecting action. I'm going to reach out to others who have nothing to give back to me. And I mean, if that doesn't show Christianity, I'm thinking about the migrants. There's so many things in the world that are going on right now, right? You just let your mind, it's just crazy. But, you know, I think who should be reaching out to them? Well, the church should be just forefront. And I'm praying and hoping, and I'm sure the CMA is involved in that in some way. And I just don't know. It's just happening as we speak. But that connecting actions, people that have nothing, we should be running towards the poor and trying to help them. And then I think they probably, just like we can, I think these people said, I've seen the connecting vision. I've seen the beauty of the banquet, and I'm going to give my life to something that's just more than my own comfort and needs, right? I mean, that's usually in America, that's just what we're going to be focused on. It's just as long as I'm comfortable, when I got enough to eat and I'm comfortable and I'm not too hot, too cold, whatever. I mean, we're a very selfish society. But if you have that connecting vision, your vision, just like our church vision, is to reach people in this county. We're not going to do that just by sitting on our couches. It's going to take action. It's going to take sacrifice. You know, the gospel means good news, and I think we have a choice when we look at this, and we look at it in the terms of this banquet. We can be one of three types of people. We can be a no news type of person, which is, you know what? I come here, I worship, I'm fed, I take care of my business, I'm a good person, I live my life, I really don't try to sin too bad, but I really don't bother anybody. I really don't do much. But, you know, you're not a real positive influence, but you're not a real negative influence. You're sort of just in the middle and sort of just getting by. You can be a bad news kind of person, where you can go around and just talking about how bad things are, there's no victory, God's lost his grip on the world, all is lost, and, you know, and by the way, repent or go to hell. You know, somebody really, really negative and judgmental. You know, I think a lot of people have left a lot of the churches around here because they've been like that. Or, yeah, judgmental is a big thing. Or we can make that choice and we can be good news kind of Christians, which means, hey, I know the King, and he's inviting everyone to come. It's going to be a beautiful wedding feast with everyone there, because Jesus has already paid the price by his death on the cross. Come with me and follow him. And I think that's, if we can make that choice, that's the choice Jesus wants us to make, and to follow him. So let's pray. Let's pray together. Father, we love you so much. Thank you for this message that you've given all of us. Lord, I need to hear this as much as anybody else, because I don't follow you with all my heart. I don't reach out to people. I'm selfish with my time at times. So Lord, enlarge our vision. Bring us to the point where we're at this feast, and we're hearing Jesus talk about this, and we say, no, I want to be with him. I want to follow Jesus, as we sang about before. Lord, we love you and we praise you, and we pray for this church. Pray for our team over in Spain, that you be with them right now. I know they're coming back soon. I pray that all the ministries, the men's ministry, the women's ministry, as we study your word, as we roll up our sleeve, the community groups, that all these things, that we would connect with each other, but not just for our own sake, that we can connect and move out and spread the gospel throughout this county. Lord, again, thank you for your love for us. We praise you. We say it, and we pray this all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Awesome. Can we give Jeff a hand real quick? Yeah, love that guy. And his Chewbacca height. I'm like, here, let me get the mic for you. No. But yeah, what an awesome word. Definitely inspiring, encouraging, and just for us to keep our eyes out. I own a gutter company, and when you start doing something for so long, almost like when you buy a new car, now you start seeing that car everywhere. Well, with gutters, I can't stop looking at gutters. And with a message like that, I pray for every single one of us that our eyes would be kind of fix on something totally different, that you would have a vision on bringing people into the banquet, that you would have the passion and the fire. You know, I've seen it in Jeff. I've seen Jeff just, you know, lately or this past year, just God doing a work in his heart, in his life, and that will rise up and want to affect the people that are around you. So I'm going to have you guys stand, and I'm going to pray with you real quick. I just think there's probably some people here who you just need the touch from God. You are invited to be at his table. You're invited to be at this banquet, but for whatever reason, you just feel held back. You feel like you're maybe coming up with the excuses. You're the one coming up with the excuses that you can't make it to the call of Christ because you have your life, you have this going on, you have this circumstance happening. But if that's you this morning, I'm going to have everybody close your eyes, just for, you know, privacy, but everybody close your eyes. If you're here this morning and you feel like you are coming up with the excuses, but you want to stop, you want to be able to join the banquet, you want to be a part of this party, you want to be a part of this table, do you want to stop the excuses today? I want you to lift your hand. I want you to lift your hand now. It's awesome. I see the hands. There's a bunch of hands out there, so definitely don't feel alone. If that's you and maybe you're even coming up with an excuse right now not to raise your hand. Who knows? But for each person with their hand raised, God, I pray this morning that with this word, this parable, thinking that these are words that you, Jesus, have spoken thousands of years ago. A couple thousand years ago, you were actually speaking this exact message to people and encouraging people to make it to the table, to be there. I pray that for each person with their hand raised, that they would be able to boldly make it to the banquet, that they would stop the procrastination, they would stop the excuses, and whatever circumstance that arises in their life, that the circumstance would not control their decision to follow you or control that just want to go into the banquet. God, I pray that you would just raise them up into the mountainous life, the monstrous life that you've called them to, an amazing life. And this amazing banquet that we are all invited to, we pray that we would just be bold, that we would be vigorous, that we would go out into this world inviting people to the banquet. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. You guys are awesome. We got a good church, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we? Again, such an awesome message, Jeff. And just for the rest of you guys, as you leave today, if there's anything going on in your heart, in your life, if like those circumstances that I talked about, if anything's going on, I know Jeff and a couple other people can be down here just to be able to pray with you. So as you're dismissed, if there's anything going on that you just need some prayer for, and you want somebody to just with faith be able to stand with you and stand in the gap, we are here, we are ready, and you guys have an amazing week. Women, what's this week? It's the Bible study, women's Bible study. Make sure you get yourself to the welcome table, sign yourself up, and get spiritually massive, your muscles. All right? Awesome. Be blessed, church.